I'm Wayne Caddy at Sourdough Slingers. In today's lesson we're going to cover what you need, a recipe, step-by-step method and top baking tips. I'm also using a little bit of sourdough in the recipe, and for me it improves the flavour, but also it's a really good way of using up any excess sourdough or leftover sourdough. Don't worry if you don't have any, it's totally optional and it will taste great without it. In this recipe it calls for 100 grams of white flour. This could either be bread flour or plain flour. Use what you have. 100 grams, and then we have wholemeal flour, which contains all the bran and endosperm, 100 grams of that. There we go, so I use a tear function to tear off so it was back to zero. So it saves on lots and lots of pots and washing up. Just weigh on top, weigh dries with dries. Pre-weighed the salt goes in. Pre-weighed the oil, some veg oil in there. Water goes in, and then sourdough. So this is a rye sourdough. It could be any sourdough, it could be spelt or wheat sourdough, it doesn't matter. It's a really good way of using up any excess sourdough that you may have. The next stage is mixing. So this is really easy to mix, and all we're going to do is put our hand in the bowl and stir around, keeping our fingers together. Keep stirring it round and round. The good thing about chapati is that you don't really need to over mix and knead. It's just a case of bringing it together till it's nice and smooth. And that's all we need to do, is just bring it together and leave it to rest for 30 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next stage, which is shaping into pieces and then rolling out into chapatis. After rest time, take the dough out, and the next stage is scaling. So there are two ways of scaling. One, just by a visual sense. So if this piece is going to be cut into 4 pieces, then you could put a nice sort of cross on there and then cut right through and then half it again. So you're doing it by eye, I guess, really, and then you can just sort of pick them up and feel, do they weigh okay? So just do that again. So you've got your piece of dough there, look, there's my sort of halfway line. So you're cutting it evenly, and they feel about okay. Or the other way to do it is by a weight, okay? So if you know what the recipe yield for a certain recipe is, that's easy to work out. It will tell you how much to scale the dough pieces at and how many pieces you will get. So for example, this recipe will make 4 dough pieces at about 95 grams each. So you can actually weigh them. So that's 96, so that wasn't a bad guess. That's 96, that wasn't a bad guess either. This one feels a little bit lighter, so that's 88, and that one is 103. So all I'm going to do is take a little bit off this 103, make it around about 94, 95, that's 98. We're happy with that, you know. It's okay that, you know, a couple of grams in these isn't going to make that much difference. So we've got them evenly portioned. The next stage is shaping, which is a skill to acquire, but practice makes perfect. Essentially what we're going to do is our hand is curling round like this, so your fingers are over like that, and it's the motion of this dough piece that we're going to shape in a second of the fingertips against the palm here. So you see, so what we're doing is imagine that this is a fixed point here and it never moves from that position. So if you're rolling it around like that, you will always have the craggy bit all around and it won't go smooth. So the objective is really to keep this fixed point here. It's like an axis. So when you're moving around, it's staying there. Okay, and what we're doing is we're tensioning the dough and making it smooth on top, and all of the craggy bits go underneath there, and that's absolutely normal. So it should look like a perfect ball every time. Okay, so just to repeat that, my hand shape is like that. My fingers are bent over, look. So either from the side or on the top. You can't see what I'm doing on the top, but it's the same motion. Some people prefer that. That's okay. Also what I'm doing, I'm pressing down into the ball as well to add some tension. So once you've got into shaping, you can try it on the bench top. So what you can do is slightly flatten it down so it creates a bigger surface area, and it then makes it easier to tension it round. Okay, so these are quite small dough pieces, so I'm pointing my finger out. It depends on your hand size. It makes it easier to cook this dough ball, but that's the same result. Okay, so it's exactly the same as that dough ball there. It's spherical, you can't see any craggy bits there, it's round. So whatever we make, like a round chapati, if you haven't got a round here, it's going to be really difficult to pin the chapati that you're going to bake in the pan. It's going to be an impossible mission, so it's always important that you have a really good foundation of a round dough ball to make this work, unless you want to go really rustic. Okay, so if that's proving really difficult, a really easy way is to just fold it under and chamfer like this, look, in your hand. So you can do it in your hand. That's not creating a stronger dough ball, but if this is a really easy way to make a start. So that's another option to do that. So again, all I'm doing underneath is pinching it together. Now this is, it's okay if you're doing this at home, but if you're making a lot of these, that's not the fastest way of doing it. So once you get really good, you can shape with both hands. This should only take a few seconds. Okay, so if you find that you're spending a long time shaping, then you're not putting enough pressure down, or your hand shape isn't quite right. So remember, it's all about having the dough ball hitting the fingertips and against this part of the hand here, and moving it round, but keeping that axis on the top there, so it's a central pivoting point, so your dough ball can go around, and that way you will get smooth dough balls. Every time we rest the dough, the gluten becomes more extensible. So that means it will pin a lot easier with a rolling pin and won't shrink back. So the rest time is roughly about 20 minutes. Even at this stage now, we could actually put the dough balls into the fridge, okay, and save them for another day, and they will be ready to use straight away from the fridge. Just make sure that they're put in a covered container so that the dough doesn't skin over, and then they will work absolutely fine. And actually the flavour will be significantly improved by letting them rest overnight. The sourdough will produce a lot more lactic and slightly acetic flavours, but not too strong. You don't want this too strong, but it will just give a better rounded flavour overall. Okay, so this is where we're going to pin the chapati out, so it's a nice sort of thin, almost chamois cloth consistency. Okay, so what we do is we take one of the dough balls, dip it in flour, and then we start to roll out. Okay, so we're going to roll one way, so it's a bit more elongated and like a rugby ball shape. Flip it over, turn it 90 degrees while you're doing that, and pin the other side. And really push down with your rolling pin and repeat again. Okay, so we're doing the same thing every time. I guess this is a nice way of doing it, but if you've got another way of making something round, pinning out round, then just go for it. Okay, so you can see very quickly we've created this really nice, soft, stretchy chapati that's very thin, super thin. It's like a chamois, okay? Very strong as well, but also very extensible. You can see how you can see my hand through it as well, it's that thin. Okay, it's also the same thickness throughout all of the chapati as well. Making chapati could not be simpler. All you need is a pan, a dry pan, and quite a moderate high heat. All we do is take the chapati, put it in the pan nice and flat, and wait for bubbles to appear on the surface, and that's when we'll flip it over. But essentially we're looking for a nice colour, so you can see at the moment that's not got any sort of nice sort of little charred bubbles, so we leave it. And you can see already we're starting to get some little bubbles starting to appear on the surface. See, it's little popping away there, the little bubbles. If that's taking too long, then I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and it's just finding the right sort of spot for the heat really. So we'll have another check. Yeah, that's good. So it's baked evenly, got the little spots. The second side shouldn't take as long as the first initial side, because it's already got to a warmer temperature than putting a cooler piece of dough in the pan. So the second side always will take less time. Nearly there, look. Okay, we can turn that down a little bit. Let's have another check, so that's going to go fairly quickly. So yeah, that's great. So what we do once we've got chapati out, place it onto the stack of chapatis that you've already made, and they're in foil. So what you want to do is sort of seal them off so they keep nice and warm. Okay. You can also let them cool on a cooling wire, and then freeze them in a polythene bag. So after you've cooked your chapatis, all we need to do is brush some melted butter over the top. Could be ghee, melted butter, add a little bit of garlic in there, but nothing too fancy. It's a mop-up bread this, so I'll keep it nice and simple. Hi, I hope you've enjoyed this bread lesson. If so, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Now, watch out for more Sourdough Slingers videos.